Hi, everyone. I wanted to thank you for joining me at Evolutionary Energy Arts once again. Today, we're going to be talking about ketosis, fat loss, and specifically looking at the different types of uh, ketogenic diets that you can do and what the differences are between them. And then we're going to zone in a little specifically on what's called a cyclic ketogenic diet. Um, Now, I just wanted to share some of my background with you. Certified fitness trainer. I've been working out since I was 12, pudgy boy. Um, that was picked on, so got my first weight set and started hitting the gym. Basically, I've been a gym rat most of my life and gone back and forth between the martial arts and weightlifting, working out. At times, my best lifts, I've bench pressed over 400 pounds. And most of my lifts were done at a body weight more around 180, 190. And then I free squatted over 500 pounds for 10 reps before, and leg pressed over 1,000. So, yeah, I've done some pretty decent lifts, although not specifically a power lifter. I actually have a very small bone frame compared to most. Currently, I'm actually 5'10" and a half, and I weigh about 179 pounds right now. And that's at about probably around 10% body fat at the moment, which I'd like to drop down and stick more like around the 6 to 8% body fat range. Um, so I still have some work to do, but I'll tell you, keto diets are all the rage now, and everybody's catching on to it. There are so many studies coming out showing the value of a ketogenic diet. And what that is basically it's when you restrict carbohydrate intake to the point that your body starts converting the fat that's stored in your body into ketones for energy. And this happens. It takes a little while to get the process rolling. Usually, it'll start going after about 3 days on a ketogenic diet, which would be basically a high-fat diet. Very, very, very low carbs. You're going to try to keep the carbs to as low as possible. Definitely recommended to stay below 50, and it's probably a better idea to stay below 30 grams per day, which is doable, although it is tricky and it takes a little bit of skill. Getting used to what is something you could eat and what some things you're going to have to avoid. For one, always stick with real whole foods. Real whole foods are really what your body's meant to run on. So, eliminating the processed foods right off the bat, and then just watching what you're taking in and being honest about it. It's so easy to forget a little thing that you added to a recipe. Um, be honest with yourself. Don't fudge things. And it takes consistency with everything. It's all about consistency, so you have to kind of stick to it. If you could stick with this diet, a lot of people do get brain fog the first few days, um, and feel kind of weird as their body switches from using glycogen for fuel, or basically sugar, to switching over to utilizing fat and using ketones. So if you could last a good couple weeks, usually you can start to feel really good. You'll feel extra sharp mentally. You'll also have a nice stable level of energy. It won't be the peaks and valleys that you get with carbs. You won't feel like so full that you just want to take a nap all the time. And so you'll have a nice steady state energy, and you'll have good mental clarity. When you're in the gym, if you lift a lot and you are trying to build muscle, you will feel a little flatter than when you have a lot of carbs in your system. That nice pump feeling when you have a lot of carbs, it makes it feel like your skin is stretching, and you won't really get that same sort of pump, but you will feel good, and you'll feel way more stable, and then your physique will show it, because it's definitely a superior way to lose fat and to keep a low level of body fat. And it's much more manageable when you're doing it this way. It becomes just easier. And then once your body gets adapted, it's amazing how easy it is, and it almost becomes like an effortless thing. Now, it all depends on your background. What have you been eating, and what are you used to? So, if you're used to taking in a lot of junk, if you're used to white bread and white pasta and, McDonald's and Burger King and stuff, then you're going to feel such a toxic shock. However, if you are pretty clean eating and you have exercised discipline in the past with watching what you're taking in, and you're eating wholesome natural foods, and that would be like vegetables. Your veggies are going to be a big bulk of what you're eating, along with lean meats and proteins. Carbohydrates slip in a lot of different spots. So, I mean, if you are going to be seriously looking to limit yourself to 20 or 30 grams at the most, then you really have to watch where they're hidden. Because even in things that you might not think, like Greek yogurt, for instance, Greek yogurt is a great protein source. I love it, but I recognize that some brands, it'll have, if you're taking in one serving that's going to get you 25 or 23 grams of protein, you might have 10 or 12 grams of carbs in there or more, and then you have to think about, is it worth it? So I always look at the labels and try to find the lowest carbs possible. And the thinking is so different than growing up in the 80s or 90s, where everything was low fat and everybody was fat phobic and weren't worried about taking in carbs. Even the food pyramid showed 7 to 11 servings of carbs a day, grains and things. Now we know that insulin is the issue, and carbohydrates spike insulin, and that causes fat retention and also causes inflammation. And so many autoimmune diseases are inflammatory, just in nature. So that's something to keep in mind. And besides being a fitness trainer, I have worked in the health industry as well. I've worked for a pharmaceutical company for a while, and then I've also worked in the alternative healthcare industry, in a wellness center that was all naturally based, and learned a lot there. Um, so, really, what you get with going onto like a ketogenic diet is it's going to be good for you long term. And once your body gets adapted, it becomes so easy to lose fat, just so easy. For one, you will feel more satiated when you're taking in protein and fat than you would if you're taking in high carbs and moderate protein and low fat. You will just simply feel like you're not suffering. And it's going to be muscle sparing because your protein content is going to be relatively high. Even if you're doing a traditional ketogenic diet, which only has maybe 20 or 25% of the intake from protein, if, for instance, you are, a 200-pound male, that's still a good amount of protein. 25% of your calories coming from that would, still equate to like 125 to 150 grams of protein. Just to tell you what I'm doing right now, basically I want to keep my weight about the same. I would love to end up weighing somewhere around 178 to 180, but I'd love for my body fat level to be down around 5 or 6% at that weight. And that's really what I'm shooting for. It's hard to stay down that low all the time, but actually it's way easier doing it on a ketogenic diet than it would ever be with carbs. A high carb intake is going to be something that's going to spike the insulin and just cause more fat storage to go on. So what I'm doing right now, as far as my plan, one of the things I'd recommend seriously is going to one of the keto calculators, and it'll really give you an idea of what you should be taking in. So like I was saying, I'm 5'10 and a half, 179 pounds right now, 52 years old. and I'm estimating my body fat to be about 10 to 11% right now. Moderately active, and I want to basically stay the same weight. I would just love to switch out, 5 to 10 pounds of fat for 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. So what's recommended for me is about 20 net carbs, or thereabouts for the day, and that's tiny. And then depending on your protein needs, being that I lift weights typically 5 or 6 days a week, I should be taking in about 1 to 1.2 grams protein um, per lean pound of lean mass. Now, if you're sedentary, it would be less. It might be as low as 0.6 to 0.8. And if you're active, it's somewhere in the middle, So it all depends on the person and what you're doing. So I'm typically in the gym for probably 90 minutes, 5 or 6 days a week. And then we also do walks around town and stuff and do some light cardio. So for me, I need 2,252 calories to break even. So that's what my allotment is. And that breaks down into the ketogenic system as 156 grams of fat, 20 grams of carbs max. If it's less, fine. You just don't want it to be more. And 191 grams of protein. So that's a lot of protein. It's because basically you're only splitting your calories by 2 macros when you get down to it. So, even though you're taking in a higher percentage from fat, you're still getting a lot of protein, which is going to spare muscle tissue. And basically, what I want to do is hit my caloric goal of the 2252. And the ketogenic keto calendars, this one that I'm using right now is www.ruled.me. And, they're free. You could just pop on there and get a good idea of what you need to take in on a daily basis. So for me, that's what it's going to break down to. About 156 grams of fats, 20 grams or less of carbs, ideally, 191 grams of protein. In effect, I think for me, I could probably go as high as 50 grams of carbs and still stay good, but I want to stay more in that 20 range. So that's what my breakdown is. And then just to let you know what I did today, I keep track of it on Chronometer, which is another free app. So we just simply plug in all the food, and I plug in my weight every day too, so I can monitor it. And then when you monitor it on a daily basis, you get an idea of how little variables really affect things and fluid retention, things along those lines. So what I ate today ended up being 2,165 calories, and it worked out to be a little high on the protein, 252.9 grams, 22 grams of net carbs. And that's net carbs because what you do is you take the total carbs, subtract out the fiber, and that gives you the net carbs because the fiber you're not going to actually utilize. And then 108 grams of fat. So that's how my macros broke down today. So I did good with the carbs. I got plenty of protein, and then the fats were pretty good too. And the total calories were in the right range. Maybe I'm 80 calories shy, which is no big deal. Because you're going to fluctuate a little each day. But it's just about being steady and consistent. So if you're 80 calories over today, you're 80 short tomorrow. It's no big deal in the long term. It's more important to basically stay consistent with your macros and stay on track and on plan. So I know, this a day like today will definitely help me in long term. And some people are very, very afraid of going with too much protein because they believe the protein is going to just basically convert into glycogen and be utilized and get them out of ketosis. The other component that I use in my plan is intermittent fasting, which is such a powerful, powerful tool. And when you combine intermittent fasting with a ketogenic diet, it's just a fat burning machine. It's amazing how fast the fat will peel off. for when you go and you don't take in food for a period of time, your body will automatically start going in ketosis, you know. So this helps build up that ketogenic effect. Also, it basically allows the body a lot of rest time. So for my plan right here, I have done it where I've gone and just eaten in a 4-hour window in the past. But right now I'm going to stick with basically eating in a 6-hour window. So, you know, today, for instance, it was like 12:30 to 6:30. So 6-hour window of eating and then 18 hours of fasting every day. So this allows your body to rest. And when your body is in a fasted state, once it burns through everything it has, the first material it starts to burn up is anything that is less than perfect. You know, cancerous materials, you know, cells that are weakened and need to be broken down. So this could have an effect on your immune system, actually boost your immune system. Intermittent fasting is a powerful tool for really achieving optimal health. It's something that is a great tool. Intermittently, I haven't done the intermittent as much as I've fasted, you know, in a more traditional way. I've fasted ever since I was a kid. I've just done this instinctively. And I think the first book I read on it was by Pablo Areola, who was, you know, famous more like in the 50s and 60s and 70s. However, that was back probably when I was like maybe 16, I read about it. And so I would just periodically always have at least a 1 day, and then sometimes I would have a 3-day fast, and I would go as high as 5 days. And I've done various forms. I've done water fasts. I've also done juice fast cleanses. But, you know, typically what I would do is, you know, pretty much most of the time, 1 to 3 days water fast to just cleanse, rest the system. And what I would notice is a lot of the old aches and pains and injuries and things like that that were like creeping up on me would be gone after I would do this fast. And I'd be like, wow, you know, that doesn't bother me anymore. You know, so, and then also it would be a metabolic reset. So it just was a way I could reset my whole metabolism. It also kind of cleanses your palate and it makes it so that you appreciate wholesome food a little bit more. So it's not like you're craving that pizza so much. You're just, yeah, I would usually, the first thing I'd always want is a big salad. That was always the first thing I always wanted when I came off a fast. Um, and the roughage would be good for cleaning anything else that was left in there. So I use intermittent fasting with the ketogenic diet, and it really will give you great results. Great results. So that is a powerful pair of tools to use. So, you know, you could do it different ways. There's a big trend where a lot of bodybuilders even are only eating really one huge meal a day. So there's been this really interesting trend and revolution going on in thought because in the old days, you know, bodybuilders were eating every 3 hours, you know, it's 6 meals a day and just constantly shoving the food in, which is tiring on your system. And so, you know, it has long-term consequences. You know, when you look at all the big massive bodybuilders that took steroids, very few of them live too long. You know, it's not the healthiest thing. But what you do and what you get with the intermittent fasting along with the ketogenic diet is inflammation response is lowered drastically. You'll find things like aches and pains in joints and things like that will be less. You'll also find that you have stable energy. You'll find that your mental clarity is really good. And you know, the ketogenic diet has been used to help with certain conditions like epilepsy. It could definitely help with so many things, and diabetes even, because you know diabetes is all about insulin spikes. So you know, adult onset diabetes would definitely be something that it could really help you with to maintain an even level of energy. So it has a lot of health benefits to it. Now, as far as the different types, we have the traditional, which, like I was saying, is typically about 70% or 75% of your diet is fats, as far as your macronutrients, and again, trace carbohydrates, and about 25% protein is typical, and you would just stick with that. And not everybody stays on a ketogenic diet forever. There's different ways of doing it. Some people do it targeted, which is kind of where they will take in some carbs before workout. So, for instance, they might wake up and in the morning have a breakfast, and maybe that's 6 scrambled eggs with a cup of oatmeal and a piece of fruit or something like that, and then go to the gym, work out, and then the rest of the day it's pretty much pure keto, where you're not taking in the carbs. So that would be a targeted ketogenic diet. And with that, you're not going to be in ketosis all the time, but you don't have to be in ketosis all the time to be losing weight as far as losing fat. You just basically have to be expending more than you're taking in. And what's going to save your muscle so it doesn't get utilized for energy is going to be taking in a higher portion of protein. And protein, besides being very satiating, it's also the most difficult macronutrient to break down. So your body expends more energy burning protein than it does anything else. So that will help you to stay leaner and to spare the muscle tissue. Because if you're not taking a good amount of protein, and say you were doing it traditionally, then you're more likely to lose some muscle mass. Now, you could also do what's called a cyclic ketogenic, and this one's really popular. And a lot of high-level athletes will use this one too, where they basically, you could do it different ways. You could go ahead and do a pure keto diet, say Sunday night through Friday night, and then switch into a load phase. So some people will utilize it as basically the weekend is your off time, and you can go ahead and recarb on the weekend, but during the week, then you're going to be strictly keto and taking in 20 or 30 grams of carbs at the most. So you could do it that way. You could also do it where you wait and stay keto for 10 to 12 days and then refeed when you feel like you absolutely have to. For me, I probably would need, if I was completely devoid and I've been in ketosis for quite a while and had no real glucose stores, because glucose is stored in the muscles and in the liver. I would probably end up taking somewhere around 500 or 550 grams of carbs to reload my liver and muscle glycogen stores. So say if I was doing it on a weekend basis, then I might end up taking in 2,000 calories of carbs and bumping myself up to around 3,200 calories or something along those lines, which does give you a power surge, and you'll feel very strong after you do that, and you'll feel like your skin is really tight and you're busting out. And you could do it with just a 1-day refeed. Just say you're Monday through Saturday, stay pure keto. A Sunday, allow yourself to go and take in some carbs, and then of course when you do that carb hiking, then you drop your protein and your fat intake, so then your fat becomes like your carbs and it's going to be minimal, and then your protein drops some as well, but it would stay. I personally would never go lower for myself than like 150 grams of protein. Because just trial and error, I know if I drop below that, I get weaker. It's just what I've found. I've found that I need about 200 grams to stay strong and to increase in strength and muscle mass. So from trial and error for many years, that's where I'm at, and everybody is different. You have to kind of feel that out for yourself. So there's different time periods, that people will use. Like I said, one of the most common ones is basically being strict Monday through Friday, and then just Saturday and Sunday relaxing and taking in carbs, and then going straight back to it. And what this does is it does give you more energy to get your workouts in. However, long term, I've seen quite a few studies that show that this is not really the best long term solution, because of that switching back and forth between being glucose dominant and being ketone dominant is not necessarily the best. And then I think too, with people that get used to staying in ketosis and running off of ketones, it's like it starts to lose the appeal as far as taking in the carbs. It's just not even as appealing, because like when you take them in, you get that, well, it feels great when you pump iron and your muscles all fill up. At the same time, you are increasing that insulin spike, and you are having a little bit of a reaction, inflammatory response too. So if you are somebody that suffers from allergies and stuff, that stuff could even get worse when you have the insulin spike. So those are some things to take in. Now, some people will do crazy things like eating Cocoa Puffs and real crap food that is like GMO and not even organic, and full of just simple sugar, because they're just thinking in terms of, well, my muscles are going to respond the same way. Yeah, but how about your overall health? I mean, don't you care about that too? I try to buy everything organic, definitely everything non-GMO. Um, and then also just, there's no way I'm going to ever consume high fructose corn syrup. Never in a million years. And just even simple sugar, it feels toxic to me because I'm so used to not having it. Um, then you realize and recognize, once you get something out of your system, how poisonous it truly is to you. So, I mean, no way in the world I'd ever have Cocoa Puffs or any sort of crappy GMO cereal on a refeed day, um, because I care too much about my overall health to go ahead and do something like that. So I would still continue to eat clean, and on a refeed day for me, it would be more of sweet potatoes, brown rice, perhaps, things like that. Traditional bodybuilding fare that's still healthy. Um, so that's another way you could do it. And as far as what the studies are showing, there's a lot of mixed results in the studies. The most consistent thing I've seen, though, is just a standard ketogenic diet, perhaps slightly higher in protein. It seems to be the one that consistently gives people good body composition results, fat loss, sparing lean protein, lean muscle mass, actually building lean muscle mass. And then it has so many other health benefits too. So it's a great way to go. And I really would love for everybody to just at least try it and see how you feel, because everybody is different. But you have to stick with it for at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to really give it a shot. Because I've heard people say, "Oh, I tried that keto thing and oh, I couldn't hack it. It was horrible." How long did you last? 3 days. Well, yeah, sure, you're going through the worst part of it. You need to do more than that to really give it a fair shake. Because, combining ketogenic diet with intermittent fasting is, from what I have seen, it's almost magical the way the fat comes off. It's just amazing. And the other thing that is about it too is it does feel healthy, and you'll feel that. You'll feel very stable, solid. Um, it just feels good. And a lot of people that have gone to it, then they can't really go back to the other way, because they can recognize and tell that their bodies are responding in such a positive way. So I would definitely recommend for you guys to check it out. And I think if you're first and new to a ketogenic lifestyle, I'd probably recommend starting with a traditional ketogenic diet, but again, it depends on what your goals are. I mean, if you're a high-level athlete, if you're training for a powerlifting competition, something like that, um, it takes a while for the body to get adapted, and you might not have as good of results, so as far as long term, yeah, it's great, and but it all depends on what your goals are. And if you're simply looking to lose weight and you are 50, 100 pounds overweight, and you really can't beat it. And if you could get into the habit of combining it with intermittent fasting, it's just a win-win combo because it's going to have so many health benefits for you. And it doesn't have to be expensive. You could actually end up saving money on this type of diet in the long run, and have just a better overall level of energy. And of course, you're going to feel better as everything starts to fit you better, and as your waist size goes down, all that visceral body fat starts to go away. Fat in itself is not healthy to have on you because it does so many things, especially the visceral body fat, can actually interfere with the organ's performance. So it definitely behooves us to be as lean as possible. And studies show that for sure, and they've always showed that. So I hope you guys have found this informative. Check out on my Instagram, and I'm always posting like my food logs there and different recipes there, or on my Facebook as well. I'll share recipes and food logs there as well. So check out these things. I hope you found this informative. Give it a thumbs up if you thought it was informative. And then if you didn't subscribe yet, please subscribe and share with your friends. And we truly enjoy having you here at Evolutionary Energy Arts, and we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Take care.